What's up and welcome to my Razer phone review. This is part 3. I did 2 videos, one on the 120Hz display and comparing it with a Note 8 using an ultra slow motion camera so you could see that 120Hz display in action and how much faster it is loading apps, switching between them. It's an insane difference. I also posted a camera review comparing the Razer phone to the iPhone 10. Links down below if you want to check out those videos for more detail. The cons of the Razer phone are pretty glaring. It doesn't have wireless charging. The screen is far from the best color. It doesn't get that bright, so it's not very good in sunlight. You're not gonna find a headphone jack on this thing. The camera on it is far from the best. And this thing has giant bezels on the top and bottom. So why is it that I can still wholeheartedly recommend the Razer phone? That's what we're gonna talk about today. It's gonna be freaking epic. Let's get started. The Razer phone is a bold step in a solidified market of copycats and wannabes. Instead of a bezel-less display, they have huge bezels with high-powered stereo speakers. Instead of a long and thin 18.5:9 aspect ratio, they stay with the tried and true 16:9 that is still the best for most games and apps on the market. Instead of using glass on the back to include wireless charging, they went with an all-aluminum unibody design to make the phone more durable and disperse heat better. The lack of wireless charging doesn't hurt as bad when you hear about the 4,000 milliamp battery and the Qualcomm Quick Charge 4.0. And instead of an OLED screen with brilliant colors and contrast, they went with a 120Hz screen for ultra smooth animations and great responsiveness. This phone is far from perfect, but there is a niche of users out there that will absolutely love this phone. Let's talk specs for a moment. It has 120Hz 2560 by 1440 IGZO display. Dual 12.2 megapixel cameras on the back, along with an LED flash. 8 megapixel f2.0 on the front. Snapdragon 835 with 8 gigs of dual channel LPDDR4 1866 MHz. Qualcomm Quick Charge 4.0. A 4,000 milliamp hour battery. A side mounted power button and fingerprint readers. And side volume buttons. Let's talk about usability for a moment. It was a little bit hard getting used to the side mounted fingerprint sensor, but once I got used to it, it works great. It's quick, and I haven't had any issues with it recognizing my finger unless my finger was wet. Unfortunately, there's no face recognition unlocking, and the volume buttons can be a bit confusing since it can be hard to tell which way the phone is oriented when you're holding it horizontally. This sometimes resulted in me hitting the wrong volume button when I wanted to have the volume go up or down. I didn't know which way was up or down. The screen protector is pretty fantastic. I have it on there right now, and it's almost impossible to tell it's on there unless you're like looking really close. Now Razer does make a case for this thing. I've got it on here right now. It's very easy for the phone to pop out. You can get this in green as well. You just got the subtle Razer branding on the back, which I like. Now if you do get this phone, the main reason why I think you should get a case isn't because it necessarily needs it and it's a super fragile phone, but it is very slippery. Do you see that? Like I barely tilted my hand and it's just falling right out. Definitely get the screen protector and then maybe get a skin or a light case like this. Let's talk about the 120Hz display for a moment. Now I won't go into as much detail as I did in my full breakdown on the 120Hz display, but let's just say the screen's refresh rate and phone specs are tuned to make the smartphone experience the smoothest you've ever experienced. And it's not just a gimmick. I tried it once at CES and I just had to review this phone. But there are some downsides to having a 120Hz display. The screen lacks the same level of brightness and depth of colors that you get with OLED. When you're not directly comparing this to an OLED screen, you're gonna be pretty happy with it almost always, except maybe in direct sunlight. Razer includes an app called Game Booster with the phone. It allows you to control the CPU clock, the resolution, and target FPS for each app. This can be very useful when trying to improve performance on certain games, but I've found that it only works about 70% of the time. Unfortunately, some apps just aren't compatible with it and override the settings that Game Booster tries to apply. One useful example of it is downclocking the processor when you're using an app that doesn't need very much processing power, such as the Amazon Kindle Reader. You can also use this app to save battery when playing games. You can downgrade the resolution and reduce the target frame rate. As far as frames per second, you're probably thinking you can't get 120 frames per second in any mobile game, but actually you'd be pretty surprised. If the game has been optimized to work with the Razer phone or Game Booster, it's very likely you'll be able to get more than 60 frames per second. Some great examples of this is Vainglory, Gear Club, and Arena of Valor. In Vainglory in particular, I was able to achieve a consistent 120 frames per second. That said, there are some games that you're just not going to be able to get over 60 frames per second, such as in Modern Combat Versus. I was only able to get 45 frames per second, but even in games that don't go above 60 frames per second, the 120 Hz display still gives excellent response time and feedback, allowing you to control your character much better than a slower response OLED panel. Now, I did a complete breakdown on the Razer camera versus the iPhone X camera in a separate video, link in the description if you want to check it out. The camera on any new smartphone can be hard to nail on the first attempt, but surprisingly, Razer didn't do a terrible job. The biggest limiter on the Razer camera is the software that comes bundled with it. They are working hard on updating it to improve quality, but even now it can get some amazing images with great clarity and detail. The biggest issue I have with the software right now is it lacks consistency. Auto mode just doesn't work well enough yet. I'd say about half your photos will come out slightly out of focus or the exposure level isn't perfect. Software aside, the front camera is on par with all other smartphones currently on the market. One alternative to improve the software is to download a better app. There's two major options if you don't want to use the default Razer camera app. The first is the Google Camera app. You're gonna have to download it through a third party. Most likely, it's not gonna be perfect, it's gonna be buggy, and some of the features might not work, but if you can get it working, you can get better image stabilization, better color, better autofocusing, better auto exposure, a portrait mode, and better video stabilization. Another option is Open Camera, which is the most popular free camera app on the Android marketplace. It has fantastic overall options, including adjusting the video bit rates and a whole bunch of other things. If you get the Razer phone, Open Camera is definitely an app I'd recommend downloading. Either way, the actual camera sensor is the same one that was included in the Galaxy S7, and that one wasn't a slouch, so if you're willing to fiddle with it, you can actually get great results, but the camera is certainly far from the best available on the market today. As far as battery life goes, I've been able to get about 4 hours of screen on time while running at 120 Hz and max brightness. But you do have the option of reducing the refresh rate and brightness. You can set it at 60 Hz or 90 Hz. And if you set brightness into auto mode, you're looking at achieving 6 to 8 hours of screen on time, and that is some insane battery life. Now, the main reason why I like wireless charging is that you can just charge your phone without really thinking about it. That said, this phone is gonna get you through the day on 90% of the days without needing to top it off unless you're an insanely heavy user. But the great thing is that when you do need to top it off, it's got Qualcomm Quick Charge 4.0. You just plug this thing in for 30 minutes, you're gonna get 40% of the battery life back up, and that's with a 4000 milliamp battery. The speakers on the Razer phone are fantastic. One of the best on any smartphone out today. Not only are they stereo for distinct left-right audio separation when gaming or watching movies, you also have the ability to adjust the EQ of the speakers out of the box with the Dolby Atmos app. It also has simulated 5.1 surround sound, and I can say that at the very least, the Dolby Atmos demo is very impressive. Here's an audio sample. Now, sadly, the speakers won't replace your sound system, but it does work quite well if you're a person that likes playing music everywhere you go. In summary, don't buy this phone if you want the most colorful screen. Don't buy this phone if you want the best camera. But buy this phone if you crave pure performance from your smartphone. Buy this phone if you value responsiveness and smoothness of animations from your phone above everything else. That said, there are some good alternatives. You have the OnePlus 5T that you can check out. I have yet to test it, but I can say that in comparison to all the other smartphones that I have tried so far, the Razer phone is by far the most responsive and best performing phone I have ever used. Currently, you can only buy the Razer phone directly from Razer, from Microsoft, or from Amazon. I'll put a link down to those below if you want to check it out. And that's it for my Razer phone review. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll see you next time. Brandon, out.